War is a sacred ceremony where two tribes exhibit their prowess in lethal skills and, following ancient customs, acknowledge the superior among them. But that's not how humans viewed it. When our esteemed elder, a seasoned warrior of countless skirmishes, declared the beginning of the ceremony and, adhering to tradition, fell on her own blade, the humans merely stood there. After a prolonged silence, their emissary finally inquired, "Won't you sacrifice your most honorable warrior as well?" The humans responded, "No, that's the first rule of war, don't die, that's the enemy's job." Their insolence only fueled our determination to show those barbarians their place in the galaxy. We set a date and location for the battle, formally notifying the humans, who, being humans, filled every light year of the path with countless minds. When the human ambassador was summoned for an explanation, she simply stated, "We are following the first rule of war, know where your enemy lives and pay them a visit." We soon grasped the full meaning of her words as we painstakingly navigated the minefields. The humans dispatched their swiftest ships to assault us, not our warships as honorable species would, but our troop carriers and supply vessels. When the admiral informed the human raiders that those were lightly armed and armored ships, the humans retorted, "First rule of war, if you fight fair, your tactics suck," vanishing into the void before our sluggish forces could react. Late and battered, we reached the battle coordinates, eager to demonstrate to the soft bipeds our mastery of destruction. Aware of their treacherous ways by then, we replaced our arrival announcement with a sweep of our long-range scanners. This was prudent. First rule of war, don't give the enemy a chance to shoot at you. Unfortunately, it wasn't very effective. Our scans detected a storm of projectiles heading our way, too close for FTL drives and too fast for sublight maneuvers. Some ships dodged, most were damaged, and a few were destroyed. A human message played on an open channel, mockingly transmitted at FTL speed, "First rule of war, shoot first and don't miss." The admiral's order to track the transmission was futile. We were already on it, and the other ships followed suit. We arrived at what the humans called the Geneva checklist. Spotting their fleet wasn't hard, and upon seeing our superior forces, they engaged their FTL drives and fled. No surprise there, the slimy slugs were as cowardly as they were deceitful. We pursued them, and as their FTL engines overheated, they dropped from warp speed, giving us the chance to unleash our firepower. Anticipating this, they deployed drones to draw our fire. It didn't matter, they would eventually concede to our superiority and surrender to our mercy, of which we had none to offer. We chased them across the galaxy. Finally, the humans stopped running and hid, landing on an eyeball planet and leaving a single probe in orbit with a message, "First rule of war, don't waste your ammo, you might need it later." Checking our inventory, we found we had no projectiles left for orbital bombardment and no operational factory ships to produce more. In hindsight, we should have loaded our largest ships with debris, sped them toward the planet, and let gravity and inertia do the work. But we wanted to crush their smug smiles and prove our nobility. Have you ever been to an eyeball planet? These tidally locked rocks have a scorching side, a freezing side, and a thin, survivable strip in between. The atmospheric pressure differences create a perpetual, planet-wide storm, raining knives down on everything. We arrived in small waves, our transports decimated by human raids, and we didn't enjoy our time there. The humans, however, had built underground bunkers and tunnels and were eager to teach us the first rule of war. Troops preoccupied with surviving the terrain might be too distracted to fight the enemy. Our transport soon focused on evacuating survivors like me instead of bringing down reinforcements. Reluctantly, we accepted reality. The humans had won. The admiral transmitted our terms of surrender, acknowledging human superiority and informing them that we would return home to report our defeat. The human response was typical, their entire fleet emerged from the atmosphere, guns blazing, destroying everything in sight. The admiral repeated the message until the humans finally replied, "First rule of war, kick a man when he's down, it's the best time." We lost a third of our fleet that day but saved two-thirds. We were low on ammo, low on fuel, demoralized, and facing an enemy executing their plan perfectly. Later, I discovered that in human tradition, wars are fought through numerous battles, a fleet loses, retreats, repairs, resupplies, and re-engages until one side has no fleet left. It's a matter of survival for them, not honor. But at the time, our ways were unknown to them, and theirs were unknown to us. Our systems were furious with the humans, so no one objected when we marched to the human embassy and shot everything standing on two limbs. This was a grave mistake. We had started the war, committed to ancient tradition, and now we had shown the galaxy we were willing to break the laws of hospitality when things didn't go our way. All other species cut ties with us. Most ceased trade and collaboration, some joined the humans in the war. We learned not to break the first rule of war: avoid recruiting for the enemy. The following cycles were disastrous. We had never prepared for a conflict requiring quick recovery and redeployment of beaten soldiers. We learned the first rule of war: train the way you fight because you fight the way you train. Desperation led us to bribe our sleaziest neighbors into joining the war, promising rare materials they lacked. They accepted but lacked a war fleet, so we hastily built ships for them, which they used to fight the humans, who promised them our mineral-rich systems. We learned another first rule of war: never hand someone a gun unless you know where they'll aim. Surrounded, outnumbered, and outmatched, we surrendered unconditionally. The aftermath wasn't as bad as expected. Some of our systems were given to human allies. The humans demanded resources to replenish their losses, which we should finish providing soon. The council elders retired but were not paraded before humans. Our sister systems were occupied, but the humans focused on making us capable of buying their goods. They even started rebuilding our fleet, which is why I'm here at the academy. The old ways served us for generations, but the human way works, and these times are more peaceful now. The galaxy saw what happens when war is fought on human terms. That's why I'm eager to learn the Terran way of war. But why do you wear those stretchy biosynth layers over your claws? Oh, right, that's the second rule of war: always have a pair of socks at hand. As I adjusted to life at the academy, it was clear that the Terran approach to war extended far beyond simple strategies and tactics. The humans' understanding of war was intricate, blending technology, psychology, and an uncanny ability to adapt. Their focus on practical, rather than ceremonial, aspects of conflict was something I had to grasp fully. The humans didn't just fight wars, they studied them relentlessly, understanding every nuance. At the academy, I was introduced to the vast repository of human military knowledge. It wasn't just about weapons and battles, it was about logistics, morale, and even propaganda. Their concept of total war encompassed every aspect of society and industry, mobilizing resources on an unprecedented scale. One day, during a lecture on logistics, I overheard a conversation between two human cadets discussing their recent field exercise. They had been dropped into a simulated hostile environment with minimal supplies. One cadet mentioned, first rule of survival: improvise, adapt, overcome. This mantra encapsulated the human spirit perfectly. They didn't rely solely on their initial plans, they constantly adapted to changing circumstances. In another class, we studied the psychological aspects of warfare. The instructor, a seasoned human officer, explained, the mind is the most powerful weapon. Break the enemy's will to fight, and you win without firing a shot. This was exemplified by their use of psychological operations, psyops, and misinformation. They understood that war wasn't just fought on the battlefield but also in the minds of the adversaries and their own people. The academy also stressed the importance of alliances. Humans were masters of diplomacy, forging alliances that often turned the tide of war. They understood that unity and cooperation could amplify their strength. This was a stark contrast to our isolationist approach, which left us vulnerable and friendless. One particularly enlightening experience was a visit to a historical simulation room. We were taken through key moments in human military history, from ancient battles to modern warfare. Each scenario demonstrated a key principle or rule that the humans had learned and applied. It became evident that their success was not due to superior technology or sheer numbers alone, but to their ability to learn from every encounter, whether victorious or defeated. Outside of classes, interactions with human cadets were equally revealing. They were curious, always asking questions and challenging assumptions. They valued creativity and lateral thinking. I learned that their greatest strength was their unpredictability. You could never anticipate their next move because they themselves often didn't know until the moment required it. One evening, a human cadet named Sarah invited me to a study group. They were analyzing a historical conflict known as the Second World War. The group discussed the various strategies employed, the mistakes made, and the lessons learned. I was struck by their critical approach, their willingness to acknowledge and learn from their failures. The only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing, Sarah remarked, quoting.